All right, we are recording, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the waiting room. All right. Oop, there we go. One more.
Can't find the pointer.
All right. I'll go ahead and start today's meeting. Good morning or afternoon, depending upon where you're joining us from. I'm Shelley Altieri, Administrative Assistant for the World War I Historical Association. On behalf of the association, I welcome you to the monthly Bay Area chapter meeting. I'll be managing the meeting, the chat box and etc. But please hold your questions till the end for our guest, Steve. A couple of reminders: we'll be recording this presentation and uploading to our YouTube channel in a few days. And please remember, if you have not already, our membership renewals start on November 11th for the next year. And also, if you would like to participate as a speaker, Sal is always looking for victims. And I'll put both of our emails in the chat box towards the end, as well as Sal's new phone number. And now I'm going to turn it over to Sal, who is the chapter president, so that he can introduce the guest and the topic at hand. Go ahead, Sal.
All right, well, welcome everyone to our monthly meeting here. I think we're going to have a very interesting presentation from Steve Miller, a man who lives in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and he'll tell you a little bit of himself in a few minutes. But I just want to remind everyone that I am always looking for speakers on any topic about World War I. Shelley will leave you my phone number and email there, and that's the best way to get a hold of me is by email, and tell me what, if you can, and willing to make a talk and when you want to do it. I'm open to any topic, as I said, but I have maybe someone for July. I have our leader, Randy Galki. He said he was willing to make a presentation. Currently, he is in Europe doing some more research. But anyway, I keep needing speakers all the way time, and I like to have one once a month. But anyway, let me hear you about this topic, which is the topic about a view of the city of Sarajevo, which has been battered most recently in history. And so it has still an active role in our world times. I hope all of you have watched the 80th anniversary of the Normandy invasion. It was quite exciting and quite interesting to hear how history reaches that far back and seeing how it is related to everything else. And I was more than moved by this. I don't know how many of you have ever been to Normandy, but it is certainly worth the trip there for every American who really appreciates the role that our soldiers have done in both wars, I might add. All right, now I'd like to turn this over to Steve Miller. He'll give you a little background about who he is. So Steve, please go on.
Okay, I got interested in World War I through two college history courses of 20th century European history, the First and Second World Wars. It's something that I became very intrigued with. My wife would say obsessed. My ringtone is over there. And I've been lucky enough to do a lot of travel of World War I related events. I do not claim to be an expert on anything, but I'm just very fortunate to have seen a lot of the history that went into this presentation. A couple words about, I've been to Sarajevo twice, 1988 and 2010. So my experience is, my most recent experience is 14 years ago, and some things may have changed. Visiting there, I found German to be very useful, especially with the cab drivers who did not speak English. If you wanted to go to Hotel Holiday Inn, no problem. If you wanted to go elsewhere, it'd be best to know how to say it in German. I did find some similarities between Russian and Serbo-Croatian. Dobrodošli means welcome, and Dobrodošli in Russian means welcome. And I do know the Cyrillic alphabet, so even if I didn't understand it, I could sometimes read things. If you're, excuse me, I'm recovering from a bad cold, so please bear with me. If you're wondering about the logos in the corners of my slides, upper left is the Sarajevo city seal, the green triangles representing the forests around the city, the medieval gates and fortifications, and the last item, the Latin Bridge, which plays prominently in the events of June 28, 1914. The other logo, the Black Hand in 1901, is a full-scale terrorist organization. Skull and crossbone flag, poison bottle, dagger, and a bomb. They trained and equipped the Sarajevo assassins, who were just rank amateurs. They renamed themselves Unification or Death in 1911, but I'll probably refer to them as the Black Hand because it's just easier. In 2010, a good decade after the fighting there were still plenty of signs of the fighting. The upper right-hand photo, my wife and I walked past the school, and they had all these memorial plaques, which I assume were the names of graduates, the year they were born and the year they were killed. A lot of them died in 1992, and nothing was sacred. The Holocaust Memorial got shot up. Okay, period photograph, annotated. Chabrinovich was standing where the first red arrow indicates. Princip up by the Latin Bridge, and destination of the motorcade, which was the city hall. This blue arrow is here, which will give you a look at the street, fairly narrow, about two cars wide, a terrorist delight. Narrow street, very few escape routes for the intended victim. That also meant very few escape routes for the assassins, but they were not supposed to be taken alive. And here was the lineup. I'll give you a minute to look at that. Okay, more period photographs. The red arrow I added to the photo shows where Chabrinovich's bomb landed. It is not too hard to find. You'll see this building with a fancy roof and another building with balconies. Here's what it looked like in 2010. The explosion marking about where his bomb went off, on the street, of course, not on the wall. And I looked extensively for any kind of marker or sign, but could not find anything. Here's what the Latin Bridge looked like. And Princip was standing across the street from where I am now in front of Morris Schiller's Cafe. And the Archduke's motorcade sped up after the bomb attempt on him and went right by Princip, who failed to act. I've heard some comments that he lost his nerve, but his bomb had a 12-second fuse, and 12 seconds for a hand grenade is entirely too long, especially against a moving target. So that's where he was standing, and then after his failed attempt, he crossed the street to about where I'm standing. Over on the left is my long-suffering wife, once again learning more about World War I than she ever wanted to know. She retaliates by dragging me to art museums. The motorcade came down past the city hall, made a U-turn about where I'm standing, and then stopped in front of the main entrance. This was the library after the war. And here's what it looked like when the Serbs got through with it. Our tour guide mentioned that this was a totally senseless act. The library had no military value, nor did the bridge at Mostar. But this was a war of ethnic cleansing. This photo shows the Archduke preparing to leave City Hall. On the left running board is his bodyguard, Lieutenant Colonel Count von Tarach, and he positioned himself there to act as a possible shield against any more attempts from the riverside. The the Archduke was supposed to go to the museum, but he changed his mind. He wanted to go to the hospital to visit the wounded. But somebody neglected to tell the driver. Whoops. I'd seen this photo many times before. I know it's the last photo taken of them, the royal pair, before they were assassinated. What I didn't realize at first is they are making the actual turn. Look at the right front wheels, turn slightly to the right. Over here is a small tree. And over here on the side of Mark Schiller's Delicatessen is a Torley grape advertisement. Here's the tree, here's the grape bottle, and here's where the automobile stopped when Governor General Potiorek yelled at the chauffeur to stop because you made the wrong turn. Well, too late, right in front of Princip. After they were both shot, oh, okay, this is the only drawing that I found of the assassination that is geographically correct. The Duchess is on the right side in the place of honor of the Archduke over here. The car is facing the correct direction, and so is Princip. Every other drawing I've seen of this had something wrong with it. Which I cannot, this is mind-boggling. How could you get this wrong? Anyway, after they were both shot, they took it to the Konak, the governor's mansion. And my wife and I walked around the facility looking for an opening in the wall where we could get a photograph. No luck. I found this on the internet. And here are the two on their deathbeds. And, and this map will give you an idea of where things are located. If you can walk a mile or two with no trouble, you can visit all these very easily. Our Danube River tour in 2009 made an unadvertised stop at Theresienstadt, which was a concentration camp in World War II. The left red arrow points to a Star of David, and the right red arrow to a Christian cross. I did not have time to locate Princip's cell. Did find a picture of it on the internet, and the quotation on the right is what he scratched in the wall with his spoon. And he died there in prison, 1918. The three of the plotters died at Theresienstadt, and they, along with others, were brought to this memorial after the war. They had been buried secretly, but some people found them anyway. And this photo, Vidovansky, let me find that for you. Okay, that alludes to the Feast of St. Vitus, Memorial Day for the martyrs killed in the Battle of Kosovo, 28 June 1389, which is where the Serbs lost their freedom to the Ottoman Empire. The top name, excuse me, top name Princip you all recognize. The next three rows of 9 names are the assassins who or plotters who were either executed or died in prison. Zerachich was a inspiration to the assassins. He died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound after a botched assassination attempt in 1910. Now, I've read some references that there are 12 names here, but I can only count 11, and I did pass third grade arithmetic. So I think what we have here is one of two factors, what I like to call the tyranny of the printed fact. Once something is put in the print, it is a fact to be repeated endlessly. I'm fond of referencing one of my hobbies is aviation, and in 1970s, an airplane designator showed up in a popular magazine, which was an obvious typographical error. 50 years later, it's still being repeated. Obviously wrong. Another thing is that whoever wrote these things are arithmetically challenged. And this map will show you the St. Mark's Orthodox Church and a couple good landmarks where the Olympics were held in Sarajevo, and here's the City Hall. In the third anniversary of the assassination, the Catholic Church put up these monuments to the Archduke and the Duchess. Twin columns with 2 crowns, the dual monarchy, and a plaque in the street. It's called the Monument to Murder in Sober-Croatian. It lasted until 1919, after the war, after the fall of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This quotation I found, but I don't know where on the monument it was located, or even if it was on the monument. The bronze plate in the street is gone. The excuse me. All right. Several markers were put up at the assassination site. The first one in 1915, and it's all in Serbo-Croatian in Latin letters. Basically, a statement of fact. In February of 1930, it was replaced with this plaque, now in Cyrillic, and it advocates Princip and the freedom his act and produced. It went up on the 15th anniversary of the execution of 3 of the plotters, and was sent to Hitler in 1941 as a birthday present. When he was done with it, it went to the Berlin Arsenal and went back to the Yugoslavs in 1946. I've been unable to locate its present existence, or if it's still around at all. After World War II, another plaque went up, and I have failed to find a picture of it, but this is what it read. And things changed in 1953 when Tito took over as president, and the Serbs took control. Princip was no longer a villain, he was a hero, and the Latin Bridge was renamed after him. The museum was created from Schiller's Delicatessen, Mlada Bosnia, Young Bosnia, which was a youth group who had pretty much the same goals as the Black Hand, the unification of the South Slavs. Russian South is Yug, since Yugoslavia. And this spot you'll see in a bit, tour group at a key location. And then where I was just mentioning, Princip's footprints were put in concrete where he was standing. It was a popular spot for tourists to have their pictures taken, including myself. And you'll notice it's all in Cyrillic now. I'm sorry, Latin letters, but yeah, Latin letters, Serbo-Croatian. And here's what you can read what it said. Very nationalistic. That changed in the fighting. And 1992, the Princip was no longer a hero. I like to call this the deserbification of Bosnia-Herzegovina. And the plaque came down, as well as the shoes. Here's the museum as I saw it in 2010, totally remodeled. You can see signs of the fighting, some scarring on the buildings. I think this might be a bullet hole right here. And Schiller's Cafe, this deli, this was the door in 1914 when the museum first went up. The door was over here, and now it's over here, totally remodeled. And here's the plaque that's, as far as I know, currently there, Latin letters, and also an English translation. All the nationalism is gone. Once again, a statement of fact. His footprints are now inside the museum, and wax figures of the Archduke and the Duchess. And you'll notice all the pictures of that day. She's on the right in the place of honor. The decision that some payback for the snobbery of the Habsburgs, and a decision that probably cost her life. In Vienna, the Army Military Museum, they have the Sarajevo room right near the entrance. There's the Archduke's uniform. Here's the blood stains. Princip's pistol. And the automobile, 1911 Graf and Stift Roy de Balloon Tourer. There's a bullet hole right here. And there's some scarring from Chebrinovich's bomb on the back. And the license plate on the car is very faded, but here's from a period photograph. And this is a fantastic quirk of history. This could not have been planned.
Right.
In Konopíš, in the Czech Republic, I've read that the bullet that killed the Archduke is on display there. I didn't see it, but I wasn't looking for it because at that time I didn't know it was there. The castle is worth a visit. It's a nice castle, very ornate, and there's no photography, so I bought some souvenir postcards. He was quite a hunter, and there's some of his hunting trophies, and there's an incredible collection of medieval armor. Back to Vienna, here's the Kaisergruft. Inside is Franz Josef, front and center, and to his right, his wife Elizabeth, and to his left, his son Rudolf. It was Rudolf's suicide which put Franz Ferdinand in line for the throne. Back in the Kaisergruft, I'll read this because it's kind of small. To the memory of the first victims of the World War 1914-1918, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Este, born Graz, 18 December 1863, died Sarajevo, 28 June 1914, and Sophie, Duchess of Hohenberg, born Stuttgart, 1 March 1868, died Sarajevo, 28 June 1914. Buried in the crypt of Schloss Archstetten. Archstetten is about 50 miles or so west of Vienna. And the admonishment to check the hours opened, I learned this the hard way. My first visit, I didn't have internet access, and I drove up there and it was closed. And as I'm driving away, very disappointed, I glanced in my rearview mirror and there was this picture. Fantastic opportunity I almost missed. My next trip was more successful. The castle was dedicated as a museum dedicated to the life of the pair. And of course, the man who put Sarajevo on the map, there's his fingerprint card. And the death certificates of the royal couple. And a panel dedicated to the transportation of the bodies back to Vienna and the funeral. I'll let you read this, the translation of this card over here, one of the pistols. All right, let's move on. Here's the crypt below the church and inside the coffins. And here's the Latin, united in marriage, united in fate. This was almost a religious experience to see this. The Archstetten War Memorial is located on the western edge of the town and east of the castle. And it lists the royal couple as the first two victims of both world wars. But did Princip get the last word? June 27th, 2014, a statue to him was unveiled in East Sarajevo. This is the airport over here to give you a reference if you look at a map. And he's still popular among the Serbian population of Sarajevo. My period photographs came out of the book on Sarajevo, the assassination by Eichelberg. Excellent collection of photographs and documents. I would highly recommend it if you could find it. It's all in German, but it's you don't have to read it. You can just look at the documents. It's a fantastic collection. The Road to Sarajevo, uh, published in 1966, could be subtitled "More Than You Ever Wanted to Know About the plot." Um, Heavy reading, but very thorough, and has not been updated or reprinted to the best of my knowledge. And this final slide here, these are the 20 who were either died in prison or were executed, or I'm sorry, sentenced to prison or died in execution. Very long list here and very difficult to read. I'm sure anybody who wants this, I can send it to them by email. Just let me know. And that concludes. Any questions?
Yeah, let's just open for a lot of questions. I have a couple of points I'd like to bring out, if you don't mind, Steve. The marriage of the Archduke to Sophie of Czechoslovakia, well, was then Bohemia, was not valued by the emperor. This caused quite a bit of friction because Shizo was of lesser rank than he approved. Nevertheless, he did raise her to being a duchess, and he was never cold to her, but it caused a great deal of bad willing between the Archduke and the emperor. And he had to sign that if he became emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, their kids, their 3 children, would have no rights to heritage of assuming the position as direct heirs to the throne. But he swore that once he became emperor, he would change that for the benefit of his children. And remember, his last words to his wife after she was shot was, "Sophie, please live for the children." And the other thing that people aren't aware of, the Austrians never executed Gavrila Princip. He died of natural causes. He was
Tuberculosis.
suffering tuberculosis of the bone, and they had to remove his arm through the year that he was in prison. And it even shocked him, that the whole of Europe went to war because of what he did. Anyway, that's my point I'd like to introduce.
Let me add something,
Questions
Sal.
about that?
Let me add something. There's often told that they were assassinated on their 14th wedding anniversary, which was not true. The June 28th was when he signed the morganatic agreement that his children would not be heirs to the throne.
That's
And
right.
I think they actually married on the 1st of July. But I've often seen that June 28th as the anniversary of their wedding anniversary was the day they were killed. Totally incorrect. Tyranny, the printed fact.
Steve, I have something I was wondering about. I read that there might have been like a possible misregistration of Gavrilo Princip's birth date, that there's a question that he might have been born a month earlier, in which case, if that was so, he would have been executed. But because of the way his birth date was registered, he was considered underage at the time.
I've heard that, and I've heard that a couple times. I've never actually researched it myself, but that seems to be common knowledge of his age. That's what saved him from execution.
Yeah, what I saw on the internet is it's something to do with the difference in how Eastern Orthodox calendars
Yeah,
work versus the Gregorian, and that created some confusion.
yeah.
So,
Like the October Revolution is November 7th or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
have
was
another,
also,
go ahead, please.
okay, and this is sort of a pie in the sky question, but I'm wondering if this assassination attempt had not succeeded, um, I mean, there's no evidence at all to support any of this, but do you think eventually another visit would have been made to Sarajevo and something like this would have happened, or would there have been another incident somewhere in the world that would have started World War I, but not in Sarajevo? No, it
Oh,
looks
that's
like the world was looking for a reason to start a war. Everybody was confident that their side would win.
well, I don't think there was any anxiety or interest in starting a war just for the sake of starting it. What might have happened after that, I can only speculate. What is interesting though is the Serbs shot the wrong guy.
Mhm.
Uh, the Archduke wanted to turn the dual monarchy into a tri-monarchy because he hated the Hungarians. So by adding the Serbs, it would be 2 against 1. So
Mhm.
they kind of screwed up in who they shot. But uh, I can't speculate any more about whether the war would have started anyhow. It Who knows?
Mhm. Yeah.
Steve, could you explain why the Archduke, uh, why he went to Sarajevo? What was his reason for going there?
Military exercise.
Okay,
He was an observer.
and that's why he took this trip there with
Yes.
his wife,
Yep.
right? Yeah. But actually, they were in Sarajevo for a couple of days before the assassination. Is that
Yes.
not correct?
Yes. And if you look at the book of photographs that I mentioned, you'll find photos from that trip. Apparently, it's kind of like a goodwill visit. Um, he brought his wife along so she could enjoy something without being reminded she was inferior to the Habsburgs. And they went shopping and generally seemed to have made a favorable impression to the local population.
Steve, we had one question on the chat, and it says, after the suicide, what happened to the mistress? And how far back does the tribal hatred of the area trace?
I don't know what happened to Rudolph's mistress. Um, I have not researched that. And as far as well, the tribalism, uh, yeah, everybody wants to be their own little country, not be someone else's oppressor or be oppressed by somebody else or controlled by somebody else. But I think we saw what after if when once Tito died, apparently the whole thing had been all of Yugoslavia had been held together by his army, and once he died, and a few years later, the whole thing began to disintegrate, and they oh well, we had a civil war over somewhat similar issues.
Well, Steve, I'd like to mention the fact that under Tito, which is the time I went there, before he was still in power, and the Yugoslavia was tenuously held together under his rule. People don't know that he was half Croatian and half Serbian, and that sort of made him appear like a real Yugoslavian. But the country never was quite. There's supposed to be 10 items that Yugoslavia was supposed to be. I can only name a few. One, it was one language, two alphabets, three religions, four, something like this, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 items. And to hold a country like that together was virtually impossible. And today it's still broken up, and it still looks like it's never going to be resolved being a single country again. There are actually some city states now. So I don't know, like Kosovo and a few other places where they are like that, and I don't know how much longer they're going to hold together.
Kind of
Now,
sounds like the breakup of the Soviet Union.
that's right. That's right. You were right that every nation, every people want to be ruled by themselves rather than by someone else. And so I don't know what that experiment is ever going to be in holding the Balkans together. And when they always bring up the question, the map of the Balkans, well, they ought to take a look at it now and back in 1914, and they'll see it hasn't changed much, you know. And so, what can one say about that whole area? Well, all right, Shelley, let's see if there's anybody have any more questions. Let's thank Steve for doing a very excellent job.
We
I'm
did have
sure.
one more.
All right, good,
That was in the
good.
chat group, and it is, why did the Austro-Hungarians take so long to react to the assassination? If they had reacted quicker, it seems global sentiment was on their side.
Oh, guess some of it had to do with communications. We didn't have the internet and cable news and so forth. Took a while for things to get organized, and plans to move their army and whatever forces they needed to invade Serbia. I think they knew the terms they were handing the Serbs were going to be unacceptable, but they were determined to have the revenge for the assassination. And they just didn't really understand how much the Russians were going to get involved. And once the Russians mobilized, that kicked off the Germans to capture Paris before the Russian steamroller came rolling through. But of course, the Russian steamroller never actually materialized. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I'm sorry.
I might add that the Kaiser himself, who was later on was blamed for the whole war, but he said to the Austrians, attack right away and stop in what do you call it, in Buda, I keep forgetting the capital, in
Zagreb?
no, not Zagreb, in not Budapest. Stop in Belgrade. Stop there. In other words, don't go any further into Yugoslavia. Just attack, capture the capital, which is very close to the Austrian border, and capture that. Find out what happened to everybody else, but stop there. And I think had the Austrians moved quickly, they may have prevented a whole world war. But I think you were right. The Russians, who assumed quote supporter and a defender of the Slavic race, backed the Serbs all the way through, and one thing led to another. And okay, who still started World War I is still an issue. All right.
Yeah.
I have another question, Steve. I'm kind of wondering, the security forces that were supposedly protecting Archduke Ferdinand, do you think they were incompetent or they just didn't care? Because I'm just thinking, if the US president went somewhere and there was any incident, the whole, trip would be called off and everything, and then the president would be returned to his plane and he would fly back home. But here it just seems like, an attempt was made on the Archduke's life, and they just kept going. And, it just seems to fly in the face of reason when it comes to security.
It took us the Kennedy assassination to make us understand that maybe advertising the route so far in advance and putting it through places where people could get close to him was not such a good idea. I find a lot of parallels in my mind about the Kennedy assassination and the events in Sarajevo, but it I've read some of the conspiracy theories that they knew he was coming and they were plotting to get him, and there was some suspicion that the local police and security forces were in on the plot. I don't hold a lot of value to that personally, but again, I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
But
Thank you so
here you
much.
go. Here you go to all these plans to have a royal member of the Austro-Hungarian government, and they made all these preparations, and they want a big crowd to show up as support for them, and um, kind of hard to change gears halfway
Yeah.
through.
I wonder if the Austrian Hungarian government consider Archduke Ferdinand kind of dispensable or something.
My guess is a lot of the Habsburgs were kind of glad when he was killed, because that just ended the whole problem of this commoner on his wife, this commoner
Mhm,
on the throne.
mhm.
All right, are there any more questions?
There was a question there, Shelley, about
Ah,
what did comment, something about communism.
I see it now. What was the role of communism in the subsequent unification and dissolution of Yugoslavia?
Oh, let's see. I've read that Tito was kind of trying to play both sides against the middle, the West versus the Russians, and communism worked to his advantage for or I forget which order it went in. Uh, he kind of like switched gears, and we were criticized for supplying him with some weaponry like airplanes, and then he goes communist, and that kind of backfired on our goals of containing the Russians and the communists. But I think basically he was a Serbian nationalist first, and communism just worked to his advantage. Who's going to help me, the West or the East?
But one more thing, if I can bring this out, Steve, who wound up being king of Yugoslavia? And I think he was assassinated in Marseille in the early 1930s. And who was king at the beginning of World War II? Do you know who he was?
No, I don't.
Okay, but I know that the original king, I think it was named Nicholas, not Nicholas, I forgot his name, was king of Yugoslavia. He was a Serbian king, and he was assassinated in what do you call it, the streets of Marseille, along with the mayor of Marseille. I don't know what his visit was for, but being Serbian. Um, the other issue is the fact is that the Croatians and the Slovenians were very loyal to the Austrian government, and they fought in World War I. And when after the war, the Serbs took advantage of that when they took over Yugoslavia, and they didn't get along too well with the Serbs and the together with the Croatians and Slovenians. I don't know whether people are aware of that, but in World War II, um, the Serbs, excuse me, the Croats took advantage of it and made life hell for the Serbs. In fact, there was a civil war going on in what was Yugoslavia during World War II. Not even the Germans could control it. All right, I've said enough. Come on, people. I need a speaker for August and September and October and November and December. Please call me or email me. That's best. Email me, you can do it. You all got your topics for World War I for me. Come on. All right, Shelley, you do your thing. And let's all thank Steve for doing an excellent job of bringing us up to date about this whole issue of
Oh,
the role of Sarajevo in World War I.
Thank you, Steve. That was fantastic. Thank you so
Good
much.
job. Very
Thank
good.
you. But as I say, it's more of a travelogue than a history lesson.
Yeah.
We
Hopefully,
got both.
motivate people to go see these things while you can.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you, Steve.
thank
Yeah.
you indeed.
And thank you, Shelley, too.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everyone, and look for the YouTube if you want to relive it. And I will be talking to Steve shortly to see if he'll share his slides. Several people have requested them. So well done, and thank you so much. We'll see you for Randy's fireside chat later this month on songs of World War I or music of World War I. So get your Spotify out and start looking for that. And we'll see you soon.
Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Well done. Steve, do you think you can send me your slides?
Yeah, I can do that.
If you don't mind, two people have asked for them. They just said they were just some of the best that they had seen.
Well, it's better than listening to me talk. So,
Well, thank you so much.
are you familiar with WeTransfer?
I'm not super familiar with that, but I can become familiar with it.
It's very simple. You'll get an email that there's some documents for you.
Okay.
It works a lot easier than Dropbox,
Oh, that's perfect.
and yeah, I can send them to you. And as I say, it's safe. It'll be safe to click on the link. Some people get these things, and I don't like to click on suspicious links either.
Sure.
But
Well, I appreciate the heads up, but I'll look for it.
okay, hopefully in about 10 minutes.
No problem. Thanks you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye.